listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is August 2nd, but you're listening to it on August 5th, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this Friday evening?
Oh, Spencer, hello. I'm doing quite well. Another week in the books around the office, and I am headed on vacation this week, so that's why we're recording at kind of a weird time and kind of getting out in front of it. But we picked a great week for a pre-record kind of situation to fall because we got a lot of stuff to cover. It's been a bit of a roller coaster this week, so I'm excited to dig into this stuff. We're in a good place. Tuesday, Wednesday was a little weird with the event, and we'll get into that for sure. But everything is, firing away at this point, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, things are moving more stable, and we're actually heading into a free-to-play weekend for World of Warcraft. As long as you had a pre-existing account, anyone whose account has gone inactive this weekend only can have access to hopping into the game and essentially playing all the way through all of the current content and expansions without having to pay for a sub. It's just going to be everyone's accounts are active if they were inactive before. So if you already have a WoW account, you haven't hopped in yet, you can play for free over this weekend. And I know that's not super helpful if you're someone who's listening to the audio stuff on Monday, August 5th. This is not great. That's why I'm mentioning it top of show, so that it's like, hey, if there's people who actually catch this early enough, you can get on there and check something out if you want. But my guess is a lot of our listeners are currently subbed and playing the game. I know a few of you
Probably,
aren't.
yeah.
And the few who aren't, I appreciate you and wanting to stay up to date on World of Warcraft and what's happening around the game. And hopefully we'll see you back in Dragonflight. Oh my goodness. War Within at some point. Hopefully we'll see you back in War Within. Dragonflight is over. It is gone. We are
Just
entering
about,
the
yeah.
war. Yeah, we're at that point.
Yeah, and I don't remember if they did a welcome back weekend for Dragonflight.
No,
I can't remember. And if they did, this one is very comprehensive because it's pretty much just like, you have access to the entire game.
Yeah.
Go forth and enjoy yourself. And they put out some communication with some tips about like how to get started, how to get back in, or what to do. And plus, it's really good timing, especially now that the pre-expansion event is all polished up. It's a super fast way to level and get some gear and some other cool, unique rewards. So good timing. This is the kind of thing that, was it last week we were talking about how we got a free day of game time in NA because of maintenance?
Yeah.
Like that, that's like a little goodwill gesture that had sort of been few and far between in recent years. And I feel like this is another one. Maybe they did one for Dragonflight, but
I feel like if they did stuff before, they didn't do the current expansion. They did stuff up to the current expansion was free to play. I remember those happening. I don't remember something where like you could literally just play as though you had an active sub for the weekend. That's something.
Yeah, there's like no restrictions on this, so that's really cool, and it's good timing. I think there's a lot of stuff to go do right now, and I'm seeing a lot of people popping in and playing different tunes and doing all kinds of stuff. So good timing on that.
Good. And what did you up to this past week in World of Warcraft as we sort of like before the event, before we highlight the event, what was the other stuff you got up to?
Well, we did some raid. We did one night. We did Tuesday. We went into Heroic Yggdrasil and also some Mythic Yggdrasil. Just blasted through, man. It feels really good. Again, much like Aberrus last week or the prior week, it was 30 seconds, 35 seconds faster than our previous fastest kill on pretty much every fight. It's really where you want the raids to end up at this point in the expansion. Like, this stuff should not be challenging. There's no real prestige left for doing it. If you're still raiding, it's because you want to hang out with your group and have fun. And also, some specs are in really weird places without their hero talents, and not everything's not really balanced around level 70 anymore. So the fact that the content bar is lower is great. We didn't get any Fearlath starters out for anybody, which is a bummer because we're like really right up against it at this point. There's people who have alts or whatever that they never just got in there and got it on a strength character, and we only got a couple weeks left. I don't understand why the starter isn't just guaranteed at this point, but that's a whole other story. Beyond that, did some keys. It is the weekly, as we speak, we're still in the midst of the weekly dungeon event, so I wanted to get some bullion just to have some options. I did a +10 It was fine. The tuning felt really, really favorable. It was pretty easy. I guess I'm not really going to miss Sanguine after all, you know. But then I did some +8s, and that was just like we were +3ing everything everywhere, just not even thinking about it, you know. That's how fast we were tearing through those. So that was nice. Not a huge time commitment to do like decently high keys, aspect crest level keys, and then get the weekly done, right? And so outside of that, really, pretty much the entire rest of my time was with the event, and most of that was, you know, prior to the big changes that came in last night. So, you know, when the event started, on Tuesday. It was okay. Every 90 minutes, a zone's going to light up. There's going to be 6 objectives that the shard has to do. Once those 6 are completed, the boss spawns, and then there's just mobs hanging out after the boss dies, and you can kill the mobs, but they drop like 1 currency apiece. They don't drop any gear. See you in 90 minutes. Even at that, right? I wanted to check. I think I mentioned last week that I was waiting to see how it felt for leveling with the Troll Warrior. So I took the Troll Warrior out Tuesday to Dustwallow Marsh, which is one of the zones where the event happens, and there was just a giant stack of people just destroying the spiders and the scorpids and the imps and stuff that spawn there. And I'm like, sweet, just start tagging stuff up. That bar just fills up. Cap the Troll Warrior, no problem. Came back on the Nightborn Monk that same day, got that leveled up. Next day, same thing. Just go out to Dustwallow. There's just always the remembered mobs there that, you know, they give a fair amount of XP. They scale up with your level. Just, you know, 20 other people standing in this bog shooting all this stuff. Okay, tag it all up. High Mountain Druid leveled up to cap. Undead DK leveled up to cap. And then Thursday, it started really slowing down. Earlier, you know, in the week, I was getting, I would say, a level every, like, let's say 6.5 minutes. It was about 5 to 10 minutes per level, all above 50, anywhere from 50 to 60, leveling these tunes up to 70. So the XP was really fast and really simple. And, it you know, it was boring, but considering it was only taking me, you know, maybe an hour or so to get something leveled up, maybe a little bit longer, it didn't feel that bad those first 2 days. But then Thursday, I'm like, okay, I want to get the Horde tanks done. Let me get the Tauren Paladin out there. The population just disappeared. There was nobody. I couldn't find groups. I was starting groups that I couldn't fill. By the time we would get a zone, the dynamic spawns, we'd kind of whip them up into sort of a frenzy where there's always something to kill. By the time we would get that far, the event would be spawning in the next zone, and then the whole group would break up and have to start the whole process over. So, man, that was a real drag. But I ended up leveling the Paladin that way, the Tauren Paladin. And then I just had the Blood Elf Demon Hunter was the last Horde tank to cap out. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not standing in Dustwallow Marsh tagging mobs, hoping that more people show up and that more spawns happen. So I started leveling traditionally. You know, I went and started Dragonflight and started doing some quests. And I went to the zone where the Dream Surge is to get the bonus XP. And then I had some stuff to do. You know, I had to do like real life stuff for a couple hours. And while I was doing that, they pushed these fixes that we'll talk about. And I said, okay, well, let's see what this is all about. Came back on the Blood Elf Demon Hunter and pretty much immediately hit level cap from about 55 or something, like just zooming through. and I was like, well, if this is like that, let's do the Maghar Warrior. Let's just do more warriors. The Maghar Warrior is already 60, so he was done very quickly. It's incredible, and we'll get way into the nitty gritty on it. But I mean, as far as the event goes, my big leveling goals are done. I got the new heirloom ring. I got the mount that changes to a faction appropriate animal, and I got all 3 pets. So I got all the really important stuff done, and now it's just anything else I have time for or feel like doing is a bonus. And yeah, so that's, I think it landed in a really good spot. I was getting utility out of it the way it launched, but it was bad. Like, it wasn't fun or engaging, and you kind of want an event like this to be that way. And so I was getting what I could out of it, but I don't understand how it started in that state and then so quickly changed the way it is now. I don't know, like, who internally thought it was going to be good the way that they shipped it, or maybe did they just have to ship something and then they could fix it later, or it boggles the mind, because it went from being such a bummer, just such a, you have this 6-minute window every 90 minutes where something interesting happens, and then you're just tagging mobs, to now there's always something to do in the event. You always feel like you're getting rewarded. And they turned that around so fast, 2 business days, basically. And it went from how it launched and everybody's mad at it to, hey, this is actually a great opportunity to level. I can get all the stuff that I want because I can get enough currency. This feels like a good use of my time. It's like the whiplash is just incredible in this situation.
Yeah, it's it's certainly a great time investment. If you're someone who's looking to like, hey, what do I want to do right now in World of Warcraft? How do I want to spend my time? This is it, man. Like if you want to level up characters, if you want to get your special faction quests done to be able to get your heritage armors, that's the word I was looking for. You want to get your heritage armors? This is a great time to level up some characters and get some heritage armors. This is a great time to dive into that stuff. It feels substantially more rewarding to me than Remix did. It just does. The speed at which you're leveling, the speed at which stuff is happening feels more rewarding to me. And it's happening on a character that feels more like a live character, because we still aren't really 100% sure what it's going to feel like to have the Remix characters rolled over into the live game, and where they're going to be at, and what gear is going to be at, and what the gear is going to look like, and how the character is going to feel, and like what that transition is going to feel like. Whereas in this case, what you're doing feels exactly like, right? That this is the live game. So if my character gets this upgrade, that upgrade isn't going to go from having, 400 speed on it to having some other random stat, or just be grayed out and no longer useful, or like whatever that ends up being. Like we don't, that transition is going to happen at some point, and I just feel like this is the better version of this for me. And I say for me because it's for me, that's my opinion.
They told us, they're going to outfit your Remix tunes in like appropriate gear, but is that going to be 480 plus? I mean, that would be nice. That's what they should do, is make it be the same stuff that you get from the drops in the Radiant Echoes event. But we don't know for sure. It might be like 467 or something, It might be like, hey, get out there and go do some Radiant Echoes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think like if you're going from scratch, if you're like, I want to make a brand new character, I think Remix is still pretty comparable, if not still better, especially if you have invested time in Remix already and you have a cloak that's starting.
If you have a cloak that's along the way, it probably is.
Yeah,
but
it might be, but I think it's kind of a toss-up, and I think there's bigger benefits for doing it this way because, like you mentioned, a bunch of stuff right there, right? Like, you have the legit character in front of you. You can go just do your, whatever you want on that character. You're not waiting for it to roll into the main population. Plus, you're getting the event currency all along the way. Yeah. So you're getting progress toward that mount or those pets or gear for another character that you want to level up or what have you. So, I think it was pretty debatable. If you were starting fresh on Tuesday, then Remix was probably still better, especially if you're willing to wait out the other side. But at this point, if you have any like existing character, I think doing the Radiant Echoes is great. And if you're starting fresh, like you may just want to do that anyway. Again, like in Remix, you're not really learning how to play the character anyway. Not that you're going to learn much in an outdoor event where everybody's just tagging everything, but everything in Remix is about those gems and the gear, right? And that dictates so much of how your character plays and feels. So I don't know. I'm a big proponent of this method. And if you have a tune above like level 50, it's not a very big investment at all at this point to get it to 70, which feels awesome. That's like, it's not quite pre-Legion, if you remember that one, right? Where you just go to the Barrens and, log in and stand in the inn and you just level up as these demons invade and you get credit for it. You don't even have to tag anything. That was absurd. Korak's Revenge was also like a leveling bonanza. This is maybe not quite that level, but it's still really strong.
Yeah, it's certainly real. I don't know. It feels really strong. I'm with you. It's certainly an experience that I think players who are looking to hop into War Within are going to enjoy. It is. So get out there, enjoy that content while you can, and have a good time. All right, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft so we can get talking about this a little bit more. All right, this week in World of Warcraft is the Legion Time Walking event, where the sign of the Legion buff is up, which increases the reputation gains from quests and combat for it by 50%. You can also complete time walking versions of Blackrock Hold, Court of Stars, Darkheart Thicket, Eye of Ashara, Altharian's Lair, and Vault of the Wardens on characters level 45 and up. and it drops 467 eye level gear on that adventurer track, as well as 450 eye level gear from the vendor, and you can get yourself a cache of normal Emirdasil gear. If I don't, is it going to remain Emirdasil, or is it all 3 raids now because they're all awakened?
It could be anything awakened.
Yeah, I think it's anything awakened.
It's normal. It's like, but it is like it's weird because it'll say awakened on it.
Yeah,
but it is also that normal track. It's not like the Bullion track awakened. Like awakened is its own track,
yeah.
but it's also like an item level designation. This is normal raid equivalent, but yeah. The box can give you anything, I think, from any of the 3 raids.
Yeah, I think so.
Which actually makes it way worse because you then have 3 times as much of a chance of getting a cloak, right? Like that's pretty much what that means.
Yep.
It dilutes the pool a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's out there. This is in another time and another place, I would say, this is a great event to get a tune leveled or get some gear going to start getting ready for the new expansion. I wouldn't give a second thought to this week. There's no point. Like you're going to level much faster from Radiant Echoes. You're going to get better gear from it. I can't in good conscience recommend this to you, even though I love these dungeons, and dungeon leveling and stuff. And I'm sure time walking leveling with the new XP changes is very fast. But is it faster than killing Hogger a few times and bouncing back and forth between Hogger and Stitches and just filling up that bar and getting the 480s and all that? I don't know. Obviously I love Legion. Time walking are great events in general, but this timing is no good. Go do Radiant Echoes instead.
Yeah, agreed. All right, as far as your last hurrah goes, I mean, well, this is kind of we're at that point where this is almost the last hurrah. Like it really, we got just a couple of these more, and then no more of them. So if you want to get yourself, some Bullion, you can get out there and I guess pick the one that you're available to pick, and be able to
hopefully
maybe
this time.
I keep saying it, but it's still bugged. So.
Yeah, it just keeps assigning me Zarelek Cavern no matter which one I choose. Although I gotta say, having them all lined up and really thinking about it, I think Zarelek Cavern is actually the best one to do, because you don't have a weird timing gap really that much between Researchers Under Fire and Time Rift. Time Rift is the top of every hour, Researchers Under Fire is the bottom of every hour. So whatever time you log in, you're only going to be like 15 minutes away from one or the other, so you do that. Secured shipment is kind of a drag, but it's always going on and it's always in the same place all week. So you're not chasing it around and you're not, you're in one place just grinding stuff. So I guess it's good that it just keeps assigning me Zarelek Cavern, because that is apparently the one that I would pick. Off the top of my head, when this whole thing started, I wouldn't have thought that. But having gone through the rotation a few times, if you get stuck with Zarelek, at least it gave you probably the least, the least spiky one to do. You're not waiting for that weird rotation on Dragonbane Keep. You don't have to do a super bloom, thank goodness. So yeah, but it's like it's set up so that you could pick it, but then you just can't. So we'll see what happens with reset this week.
We'll find out whether that gets resolved or not on Tuesday. The PvP brawl coming up is Arathi Blizzard, which is Arathi Basin, but in a cold atmosphere where snowstorms are happening and you cannot see Blacksmith from Lumbermill, and you can actually ride across the frozen water towards Blacksmith if that's something you want to do, opening up some new travel paths. This was cool. This was them playing around with weather effects. I wish they'd done this more in the live game and had different zones actually have seasons, which would have been amazing to do. So, it was like an experiment, and I feel like someone went, we don't really have the time and the budget to do this for the zones when we're recycling them every expansion into brand new zones, and there's new zones over here, and maybe with War Within taking place on Azeroth for the next 9 years, we'll see some weather effects come in so that, you can see what fall looks like, in Elwyn Forest, and you can watch the trees change over Darnassus, whatever it is you're wanting to do.
Seasonal cheese in
Darnassus, yeah.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't really go to Darnassus probably anyway, unless you're talking to a bronze dragon. But
hey, look, they're going to have to do something with it at some point, all right? I'm hoping there's like sparks of life in the next 9 years in that place.
We moved out of there. We got a new
they got a new tree. I'm aware, but
it's fine.
It's just a big hunk of burnt wood in the middle of the water somewhere that no one's doing anything with.
Probably, don't worry. Some satyrs will move in there or something and make it evil, I'm sure.
They're going to have something where like the root structure of it collapses into the, underworld, and you're able to travel down through the trunk of
that'd be cool.
the tree into the underworld that's underneath of it. That's crazy. And all these bad things live in. Yeah. That's totally what's going to happen. All right. Anyways,
I think the point here is nobody's really doing a Wrathy Blizzard this week.
Yeah. I was going to say that's if we would stay on track, that's really where we're at.
It's just everything. I think it's just going to be the same thing that I say over and over again with this stuff, is that everything this week is just about Radiant Echoes at this point.
World bosses, you can get out there and kill world bosses if you want. The Orstar, the Hibernator, the Elders, or Bazuol, the Dreaded Flame, the big fire proto-dragon in Uzurspan. Get yourself some Awakened loot off of them. Mythic Plus affixes for this week are Fortified, Storming, and Bursting, meaning that non-boss enemies have more health and deal increased damage. While in combat, periodically little whirlwinds will spawn and spiral out from mobs, and when slain, non-boss enemies explode, causing all players to suffer damage over time, over 4 seconds, and this effect stacks. Fortified Bursting is always kind of a slog, because you got trash, and the trash is that much more dangerous because you're dealing with the bursting aspect of it. It also can be kind of like a Kiss Curse, because the trash doesn't die as fast. So it should be easier for people who normally are like, I cast my 3 spells, everything's dead, are now like, I cast my 3 spells, everything's at 10%, and I can actually slow down my damage, and hopefully stuff doesn't all die at the same time and kill my entire group. So there's some helpful aspects to that. Storming, it can interrupt you and bounce you and do some damage to you if it hits you, but it isn't the end of the world. I feel like this is an okay fortified week. This is not crazy. At least bosses will die really fast and feel really good this week. You're only dealing with storming on those bosses, which is fairly minor in a lot of situations. So yeah, I think it's an okay fortified week. It just, bursting to me can be a real curse on a group that is not paying attention and forgot it's bursting week. It can be.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for sure, you do have to pay attention to it. I think it is overall. I mean, I think this is a good week. I'm going to rate it a little bit higher than you. But what you say is true. Yeah. Well, I mean, for the other thing is though, that's true, but also the dungeon pool, like, we don't have Everbloom this season, right? So you don't have those huge pulls where little health stuff has on death. Like Algathar has some pulls that are a high volume of mobs, but it's a bunch of lashers that don't have on death. So that makes it a bit easier, because you might be fighting 16 mobs, but only 4 of them are going to burst, Yeah. So I feel like in this particular pool, bursting is a little bit easier to deal with. And also with the state of the tuning, like, you were going to zoom through these dungeons. So if you are finding that bursting is hurting a little bit worse than you really want it to, you can easily just dial back how much you're pulling and still have plenty of time under the timer. So that's, it's just, we're very late in the process here. We have 3 more weeks of the affixes that we've come to learn over the years before everything changes. And, the tuning is favorable. It's not punishing at all right now. Like, definitely don't kill your group by pulling, 4 packs together and killing them all in the same GCD, unless you have a Master Spell or Revival or something, I guess. But, beyond that, I think you'll be fine. I really think Keystone tuning feels great at the moment. And this combo in this dungeon pool, there aren't too many, like, edge cases where you really have to be careful or you're walking into a trap, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Trial of Style, live through August 8th, so it's up and running, and you can hop in and do your Trial of Style and check out your fancy transmog contest, where 6 players compete in a scenario. 2x2, they're thrown up on stage to compete against each other in a round robin that will determine who has the best transmog for a theme. The themes can include things like, hey, what is your summer wear? What is your beach wear? What is your green outfit? What is your blue outfit? What is your faction pride? What is those sorts of things and themes that they throw out there so the players can get out there, put together a transmog set in a, I think it's like a 3-minute window before the actual thing kicks off. And then, they're just thrown up on stage. You vote for which ones you like the most. And then at the end of the whole thing, you get currency. That currency, based off of your positioning, And you can just head out there and spend that currency on all the new transmogs that they put out. Now, I don't think any new transmogs this go around, but last go around there was. So there might be stuff you don't have if you have not done this in a while. So be sure you're getting all the new fancy things that they have out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of full sets for each armor class, and there's like all kinds of different boots and stuff. Don't forget that your transmog is free through next Thursday, so that's good. You know, transmog adds up, man, especially with all the new stuff that we're getting. And if you're like, you know, you grab a fresh 70 and then you put the Dalaran Defender gear on it, and then you don't like the way that looks, or then you go to the Catalyst and you get your season 4 set, and then you want to mog that or whatever, you know, that adds up. And so you can do that for free this week, which is cool. They also added a feature to this that I didn't notice. This probably is not brand new, but it's just I never noticed it before. So like in Stormwind, for example, when they put the trading post in, they kind of reconfigured where some of the NPCs are. And there is a transmog NPC by like on the back side of the trading post, and also the NPC that like gives you the intro quest for Trial of Style is there. When people queue up there and then do the scenario, it'll show like the winning transmogs. There's these little platforms around the NPC there, and it'll display them around the NPC in the city. So that's a really nice touch. Trial of Style is awesome. I think it's one of the most fun things they've put in the game over the years. The 6-player thing is a little weird. Like you can do it with friends, but you need like one extra person if you're used to doing small group content, right? And you can't do it with too many people. You can queue into it, but it's way more fun to do with friends over voice comms. Again, this is just awful timing. Much like Legion Time Walking, it's like nobody is going to want to do Trial of Style this weekend or whatever, you know, like or throughout the rest of this reset week. Like we just have other priorities, and it's a shame. I mean, Trial of Style only comes around twice a year. It's a super fun casual thing to do, and a different way to kind of use the stuff you've accumulated on your account, but you know, we're in the home stretch, man. Everybody is in expansion prep mode, and hanging out, dressing up your characters doesn't really fit into that.
Well, unless you want to break, like if you're someone who's like, oh my God, okay, I've now leveled my 9th character. I just need something else to do in World of Warcraft for 15 minutes. Here's a great thing for you to do for 15 minutes in World of Warcraft that is totally not leveling a character. And however, if you are someone who is leveling a character, I will say that at least Darkmoon Faire runs from Sunday, August 4th until Saturday, August 10th. That means that you can hop in and get yourself that 10% experience buff, which most likely works with, you know, the rest of the buffing that we sort of have seen to all the stat stuff. Like I imagine this has to work with the event. And so you'll get 10% more experience with Radiant Echoes event, which is awesome. And people can take advantage of that. It's crazy. It should be very fast to level. Darkmoon Faire also has... Oh, go ahead.
10% isn't a lot on its face, but like because the XP requirements have been smushed so much, that is actually like that extra bit of XP on everything you're getting really adds up. And I would think this will apply to Radiant Echoes because it's not one of those, oh, you gain extra experience from killing monsters or something, right? It's just everything you do, you get more XP from. So, I guess the only problem here, though, is this is the math that you have to do if you really want to min-max. Is it worth the time it takes to go out to Darkmoon Faire and, obtain the buff and then go back to the zone that you want to, that's active for Radiant Echoes? Is that actually an XP gain in the long run, the travel time? Because it's so fast. I don't know. It may not even really be worth it, but it is available for leveling. It might be worth a shot.
Yeah, it might be. But regardless, you're going to get the extra reputation gain as well, that 10% increased reputation gain. You can head out there and do the different events that are taking place, like the dance for, getting the actual toy from that. You can, kill the Darkmoon Rabbit. You can do the racing that takes place. You can get yourself a lot of tokens and buy yourself a dirigible. You can save up tokens for inevitably what will be a cool Darkmoon Faire upgrade sometime in the next, 5 years that we see, and spend different tokens on that. They even have transmogs you can buy with those tokens. Now, they've been in for a long time, but I haven't mentioned them in a while. That yes, there's a transmog vendor that's there that sells a lot of old tier sets and a lot of old sets. If you want to buy those looks, you can buy those with Darkmoon Faire tokens. So there's a lot to do that are happening around the fair, and you can enjoy that. And if you just want to AFK on the roller coaster for a while, feel free, right? That's an option. You can do that and enjoy yourself. Yeah. Okay. The Radiant Echoes event. New changes, Jason. Let's let you cover the new changes, because you felt these within the hour of this taking place.
I've been like living in this event for better or for worse for most of this week. So, when they first announced it, okay, at the outset, it was like the first week, it's going to be a 90-minute rotation, and Azeroth's memories will bubble to the surface, and you fight them, and then you fight a boss, and then there's leftover memories in the zone, but then, on a 90-minute timer, the next zone the process will repeat. And so that's how it was for the first couple days, and everybody was like, this event is terrible. I hate this. It's 6 minutes, and then I have to wait 90. Like, that's no fun. Which I wasn't totally on that boat, but I understood where people were coming from. There were severe problems with that implementation. It was legit. Okay, the event rolls up. There are 6 objectives in this zone. Once players complete all 6 of them, the boss spawns, and then we're done here for the next hour and a half. It's a bit like overall like Primalist Future, if you've done that in Thaldraszus, where there's like these different points that you have to essentially like capture, and then the boss spawns. It's similar to that, although the gameplay at each of the objectives is more varied.
And that timing, that hour and a half you talked about, is what is becoming shorter as this event goes on, so that the next thing will happen sooner and sooner and sooner as we get closer and closer to launch.
Right. And now that part, I'm wondering, I think they will probably just not do that now, because the way that they've reconfigured the event, all the timer really means is like which zone is active.
Yeah.
And so rotating the zones more frequently, I think, is probably just actually too disruptive with the way that this works now.
All right.
Because you no longer have there's 6 objectives that you have to do, and then the boss spawns. It doesn't work like that anymore. What happens is, okay, it's the top of the hour, and Dustwallow Marsh is spawning up. And so now, instead of the 6 bubbles at the top of the screen, there's a bar that starts at 100%. There are the Radiant Echoes, quote unquote, which are the objectives that I'm talking about. They'll be scattered throughout the zone. As players complete them, it depletes a percentage of the bar, 6%, 11%, something like that. It'll deplete the bar as the objectives get completed, but then more objectives will continue to spawn. Once the bar is fully depleted, then the boss spawns. Once the boss is defeated, the bar returns, the objectives respawn. Players can then do more objectives to deplete the bar again and spawn the boss again. The boss can spawn like 3 or 4 times in an hour instead of once every hour and a half now. So it's a lot more opportunities to do stuff. And also, that means that you are getting bonus XP and bonus currency for each of those Radiant Echo objectives that you complete, like pretty much every time. I've had some issues with server lag where I'm not getting my rewards properly, but honestly, it comes so fast and furious that if you kind of miss one or one kind of bugs out, it's not like the end of the world, because there's something else to just go jump in and do. Along with this, they made some changes to the overall reward structure. Like, they buffed the rewards that you get from each of the Radiant Echoes objectives significantly. I think they doubled it. They were granting 100. Now they grant 200. The boss grants 1,400. I forget. I think it was dropping like 1K before, or maybe not even. But they upped the yield from the boss. And again, like, all of this stuff is repeatable now throughout the hour, and then you go to the next zone and you do that some more. Whereas before it was like, well, you're lucky if you get 3 of the 6 objectives in the zone. That's really good before the boss spawns, and that's where all your bonuses were coming from. Plus your chances at the essences that you need to create the heirloom ring, your chances at gear, whether it's the warbound gear or gear that your character is going to use, what have you. All that stuff comes from completing those objectives. So you had a really tight window to try to get a couple of them done, and then it was nothing. And now there's always one of these up to go do somewhere, which is awesome. The quest structure also changed up. The quests were weekly, but character specific, which was great if you're like me and have many, many alts and you just keep cycling through them. So you're always just doing another character's quests for the day or for the week, really. But I mean, there's only so many of these you could do a day, right? now they've changed it so they are daily, but they're account wide. But they also grant twice as many echoes as they granted when they were weekly. So that's like 9,000 echoes a day just from doing those 3 quests, which just all they involve is killing each of the bosses. So Onyxia and Lich King and Rag, which is not a huge ask. And it's 9K just from that. Plus you'll get a ton more along the way. That right there is enough to buy like 3 pieces of the vendor gear if you're trying to kit out one of your tunes. And they made it so that all of that gear is compatible with the Catalyst. So you can get 4-piece, you can get the Mog for the set, all that stuff, which is awesome. So really good changes. It's turned the event into a thing you can actually just participate in. So, like consistently, you're not just trying to catch this one tiny little window and hoping you can squeeze out some rewards and then, well, I guess I'll go back to like leveling this character by tagging spiders in Dustwallow Marsh. I think the event overall makes a lot more sense now. The cadence feels really good. If anything, one of the weird consequences of this change is that the boss kind of slows stuff down because when the boss is out, there's no other echoes to do. And early in the week, like Tuesday, I think, or maybe it was Wednesday, they significantly buffed the boss's health because on the 90-minute timer, the bosses were dying so fast, and then it's like, well, there's nothing to do now. I think they could probably roll that boss health hotfix back because sometimes we're fighting the boss for like several minutes when what we really want to be doing is actually clearing out the Radiant Echoes for the currency, the XP, the chances at other rewards, right?
Right.
The boss ends up being super inefficient. Like you want to kill the boss once a day for sure, but beyond that, it doesn't. It's a little bit in a weird spot now. I think they need to. That's maybe the last change I think they could really do to improve this event would be roll back that boss health hotfix. But this is really strange because they discussed these changes publicly yesterday, like afternoon, I guess morning Pacific time. They spun up the changes on PTR for a couple hours on the 11.0 PTR. And then they pushed it by like, I don't know, 7 p.m. or something, 6 p.m. Eastern. Like it was just a whirlwind to get this changed. And like I was saying at the top of the show, the structure of the event is so much better now. And it's all the same pieces, right? There is no new element to the Radiant Echoes event. It's not like they came up with a new activity to do or something. They just took all those puzzle pieces and rearranged the picture that it's making, basically. And it feels so much better to play. I'm just looking forward to getting more characters in there and level up more and then figure out which gear I want to buy to, hook up characters with their bonuses and everything. And I can't fathom how the way they launched it that they were happy with or that they thought was going to fly. And also the rewards felt really insufficient. Like the currency seemed like a very difficult mountain to climb, especially if you weren't playing a lot of characters to be doing, a weekly quest every single time you kill the boss. And then also the initial round of gear rewards weren't compatible with Catalyst. So the way this came out, I mean, they just missed on every level. I feel like with the timing, with the way the rewards worked, with the currency yield, and just with the amount of interactivity, the amount you could engage with the event, the way it launched, all of these things were wrong. And they changed those pieces around. They rearranged the whole kind of rhythm of the event. And like I said, it's all the same content, same zones, same objectives, same stuff that you fight and do inside of the zones. And now it is, it's much more intense, right? There's always something to go do. Something's popping up over here. Oh, let me fly over there, fight the thing, click the thing, whatever. Do whatever I got to do here. Okay, sweet. Got the reward. Mount up. Go to the next one. Do that. Then fight the boss. Okay. Oh, we're going to a different zone. All right, let me hit the vendor first because I'm going to buy the thing that I've been saving up for or whatever. It's awesome. I'm really happy with the way that it landed. And I'm really taken aback by how it launched and how fast it turned around. Like when they were talking about PTR yesterday, I'm like, well, these changes sound cool, but I guess we'll see this like next week. And by that point, we'll already have had like an entire week of this 3-week event that was bad. So that's kind of a bummer. And then it was like within a few hours, it was live.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you have to picture it. Like I'm trying to picture Pacific time, right? So it's like 8 a.m. Pacific time. They roll this thing onto PTR. They then have people at the office play it for a while on PTR until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go, this is so much better. Like, just roll this out. Like, just get this live. Let's go. This is so much better. And then it rolls out, right? Like, that feels like that's what must have happened on that day, because to have something go up on PTR and within 8 hours suddenly go live, it had to have been
that long. Yeah.
had to have been a very positive experience. Like, it had to have been a one of those situations where it can't have just been player testing that we're like, yeah, let's have 50,000 people hop on the PTR and immediately send feedback about how great this was, with like constant surveying constantly happening on the screen, popping up, being like, do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like that can't be happening, right? So it had to have been internal, that people were like, yes, just, this is so much better. Please just put this live.
Right. Well, the other part about doing the PTR was like, okay, if you're trying to min-max your currency or your XP or whatever, taking the time out of the live realm and onto PTR is just going to exacerbate the problem with the initial rollout, right? Like, the only way to benefit from it was spending as much time as you possibly could in there. And now you can't do that because you're on PTR. But yeah, the PTR process was a super fast turnaround. I mean, Live Ops just crushed it yesterday. It was just unbelievable. Again, I thought we were looking at maybe in 4 or 5 days, we'll see these changes live, and it was a few hours. So, I mean, that was just an incredible turnaround on that. I would love to be like a fly on the wall as to how these decisions get made. You know what I mean? I would love to overhear, like, what was the thought process of releasing the event in its release state? Like, is it just that they have to lock something because it has to be localized and whatever, and so it just has to ship, and then once it's out, it's like actually easier to fix? Is it something like that? Because I feel like the drastic turnaround here, like, they must have known, right? Like, there must have been voices internally who were like, this isn't what it should be. Like, this isn't as fun as it could be. This isn't as rewarding as it could be. People aren't going to like this. I have to feel like there were people that knew that. So, I would love some insight into that. Is it the kind of thing where they just got to lock it and ship it and then fix it after it's, after it hits the ground running? I don't know. But anyway, the moral of the story is, they saved the event in, about 48 hours, not even. And we got a couple of weeks here left to enjoy it and to take advantage of it. And I think it's in great shape. I actually feel like if they decrease the timer from 60 minutes per zone, I feel like that'll be actually too disruptive. I think 60 minutes is a nice sweet spot because you have enough time to just chill in a zone, do a couple laps, just settle in, find those Radiant Echoes objectives and get them done. You'll have 2 or 3 or 4 chances at a boss if you need it for the quest or whatever.
Right.
And then at the top of the hour, okay, rotate to the next one, repeat the process. You don't have to hang out there for the whole hour if you don't want to, but that's the way it works. So you can kind of settle into that rhythm of like, okay, I'm just doing a lap. I'm going clockwise around the zone, hitting all the objectives, getting all my stuff. And then, okay, it's the top of the hour. All right, let's go back and go to the next zone. I think that rhythm actually works pretty nice. So a 30-minute timer might be a little bit not enough time, to really kind of settle in there and get some stuff done in that zone. I guess the only thing about that is there is a feat of strength for doing each of the bosses. So if you're coming in really late and you don't really have time to like monitor, the rotation, it might be hard to get that feat of strength. So like maybe that's where some kind of final surge, like half-hour rotation might be good, because then you could sit there for 90 minutes and get your feat of strength. But I think that's a relatively minor consideration.
Yeah, I think that was the initial objective was, hey, we want to be sure that people who want to kill all the bosses quickly can just kill all the bosses quickly. I think that was the initial consideration for it. Ideally, people would do this over 3 days, so there's no pressure at all, and they can do whatever they want, and they just do a different event each day if that's what they want to do. That's an option. So I'm hoping that the direction they move, I mean, obviously the direction they moved is a great direction. I'm hoping that they really look at what that shortening time effect would have happen based off what you're describing to me. Sounds like we could run into some issues. So We'll see what ends up happening with it. But yeah, the Radiant Echoes event is the thing to do. That is what is content in the game that is enjoyable content that feels rewarding right now. And so hop in there and check it out. All right. Notable hot fixes for the week. Restoration Druid. They fixed an issue causing Harmony, which is our mastery ability, to increase healing as if one additional stack was always present. That's wonderful. Why would you fix that? Like,
yeah, we could probably go without fixing that one.
So how Harmony works is for each hot that's ticking on each heal over time that's ticking on a player, on a target, that increases your healing by 1 times that mastery. So the more layers of, different, you can have Rejuve, Life Bloom, Wild Growth, like the more individual heal or regrowth, the more individual heals you can have on a target, the more that amps up your healing. So if it's always acting as though there's 1 stack on the target, it's always acting as though you have a fairly large healing boost all of the time. So Resto Druid probably felt really good for a week, and then it's back to where it's supposed to be in its box. But yes, that is a fix that went through for Resto Druids who are like, man, I'm feeling really good, and then this week are like, man, I somehow don't feel as good anymore. What happened? I don't know. It's like my healing just went down dramatically. That's what caused that. Just be aware. As far as dungeons and raids go, Tindral, Sage Swift, they resolved an issue that caused fire beams to move in unintended directions. It's just that, there's a bit of a laser light show happening there, and they resolved that. Mm-hmm. It's no longer a thing.
I hate when my fire beams move in unintended directions.
I know. It's dangerous.
Tindral's been a bit of a buggy one. I mean, the arena is so huge, right? It's like this outdoor space, and you fly around to the different platforms and everything. And so yeah, it's been a buggy fight at various different points in time, and just going out the way it came in. I guess I didn't experience this, but we only did Aberrus last week, so I wouldn't have seen the fight. This is the Tuesday night was the first time I saw Tindral since patch, and nothing particularly weird happened. I think somebody ended up in a spot where they couldn't get the feather buff so they could mount and fly to the next platform, and that was unfortunate. But yeah, I didn't see the fire beams chasing somebody sideways or something.
Yeah. Another highlight to go over here is that summoning a mount now cancels Zen Flight properly. It wasn't canceling Zen Flight. I don't know what this looked like. I imagine this looked like monks floating above a mount while they were riding a mount.
Yeah, like is your cloud like sticking on your mount's head? I didn't see it either.
I didn't see it either.
I don't remember the last time I pushed Zen Flight. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute, but that apparently was happening, so that got resolved. And Priest will now automatically restart Shadow Form after using Ride Along if the Shadow Form was enabled when they became a passenger. So the issue there was, you're when you're hopping on a mount and you're a Shadow Form Priest, the mount becomes a Shadow Form mount. But if you're doing Ride Along where you're hopping on someone else's mount, they didn't want that to happen, so they were canceling your Shadow Form. So Quality of Life says put the Shadow Form back on automatically when you get off the mount. That's the thing. There it is. Quality of Life for priests. You can all rejoice with what happened there. We talked a bit about the updates that happened to Radiant Echoes event, so we've covered that already. But the WoW Remix Mists of Pandaria, they adjusted the power levels of all Remix content to account for the unintended increased difficulty that came in with patch 11.0.0. So, with patch 11.0.0 live, this means Mists of Pandaria Remix is even easier. So, if you were someone who was stomping through it last week, you're stomping through it even more this week. Okay, Jason. Get back into the fight with the Welcome Back weekend with something we covered at the top of the show. And so we're going to skip that part of the notes, but we'll jump right into getting into the spirit of competition with the August trading post. So this is tying in with the Olympics, as you would guess, with the spirit of competition. That's what they're referencing. We do have Wargle the Apprehensive, which is a Murloc, a yellow Murloc, carrying a shield with a target on it, with some arrows sticking out of it, holding a white flag. That's a little pet that you can get yourself during August for the trading post. We also have the Korkron Warsaber and the Sentinel Warwolf available for folks to pick up if that's something they're interested in. The wings of the Amanith Monarch are back. You can want your wings of either your Tourmaline wings, your Amethyst wings. You can get those wings again. They are back, as well as the Sapphire Faced Mobile Timepiece. So that timepiece that everyone was like, dude, this is such a crappy monthly reward. It's back. Don't worry, it's back. You can get it.
Well, there's a couple of varieties of them now. There's 2 different colors. Yeah,
Yep.
you can buy all the timepieces you want.
Yep. The Arsenal of the Seaborn Blades are now available if you're someone who never got the Quel'Thalas sword or the swords out of, what was it, Ice Crown Citadel? What was the one that those came out of, that sword?
It was from that patch, yeah, right. Yeah, it was like I forget, but yeah, you had to get the starter from one of the dungeons that came in with Ice Crown and all that. Yeah,
and then you could get the other ones. And the monthly reward this week is the Coward's Violet Target, which is basically a Darkmoon Fair eyeball on a spiked shield that you can wear on your back, is what it sort of looks like. It is a backpack. That's what the piece is. You attach it that way with transmog as opposed to a cloak. You'd attach this thing, and it's a little like target that people have shot at on your back. It would be really cool if this actually blocked attacks. I think that would be very strong to not be able to be attacked from behind. But it is what it is.
That would be a must then for tanks.
I would love if there.
I don't care. Yeah,
I would love if there was an on use. If there was an on use for this, where it can't be activated, it can only be activated in the outdoor world or whatever, where you activate it and it absorbed the next attack that hit you from behind. That would be hilarious to me if that was a thing.
That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah, not a thing.
Oh, you're not going to believe this, but people are a little upset about the bonus reward this month.
Really? They think it's just too lame? Yeah, not surprised.
Yeah. I mean, it's not incredible, but like, it's just, you just get it for playing the game. Like, I don't know. I can't get that worked up about it. It's still better than the wristwatch. That was the lamest, bonus reward. Let's be real. This is okay. It could fit a certain kind of look that you might be going for, but am I ever going to use it? No, not really. But am I going to complain about it? Also, no. There's a very heavy like red versus blue theme this month. There's sort of like a red version of everything and a blue version of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like you said, is like an Olympics kind of nod, which is cool. It's very easy to get your Traveler's Log progress this month by participating in Radiant Echoes. You get a ton of progress for doing pretty much anything in the Radiant Echoes zones. I got mine all done in maybe a couple hours yesterday without even paying attention, just from doing that. So another good reason to be out there doing Radiant Echoes, just get your Traveler's Log done immediately for August. And I got to say, I was looking through this today and like in game, like looking at the vendor, this is maybe one of the best months I think we've ever had. Like Wargly is awesome, the Murloc pet, the sort of faction swapped like Horde Saber and Alliance Wolf are really cool. There's these hammers, the storm hammers that go with if you got the Mog that was the expansion bonus, like the Epic Edition or whatever edition that it came with. What was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? They put quests in the game that gave you like 4 different color variants of that armor. We had the Stormhammer before, but it only matched the initial color scheme for that armor.
Yeah.
Now we got like 3 or 4 different color schemes for the armor, and now there's hammers to match them all.
Yeah.
And even if you're not going to match it with that, the hammer just looks awesome, and you get there's a version of it that's just kind of the weapon, which is big, kind of gnarly looking hunk of metal. And then there's also a version that has sort of this crackling energy all over like the hammer face. So you can kind of pick between those. That's really cool.
We always
the Fireborn and Seaborn blades are cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff this month. This is a lot of times the trading post comes out and I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'll spend some tender on something because like it's gonna go away, so I might as well buy something. This month it's like it's a good thing I got some banked because I want to get a bunch of like the weapons are really cool. The Murloc pet, I got to do that.
You got to get the Murloc pet. Like, that's the must-have for the month for sure. Yeah. I am glad to see that the thing that we suspected a while back, although not as implemented as well as we'd hoped, is happening, where they're starting to release transmogs that line up with the armor transmogs that they initially put out. Because when they were doing, hey, here's the armor transmogs and here's the weapon ones, and you're like, okay, these are like, some of them actually clash in color combination. They don't work at all together. That they're finally starting to resolve some of that, because it felt very weird to be seeing that combination take place. So at least now they're starting to sort of like, okay, here's the other variations on this that actually make sense with those transmog sets, when they're like, You have to be doing your stuff every month, and even then, you won't be able to afford all of the transmogs for the weapons and all of the transmogs for the armors because there's more than the currency can afford. So pick and choose. Like, that was stress for a little while there.
Yeah, that was like late last year, right? It was like like fourth quarter of 23.
Yeah.
And now it's just been with Remix that they put in some of the stuff that actually matches for the class armor and weapons.
Yeah.
This at least, like, we weren't waiting long at all here because we just got the new color schemes for the expansion bonus Storm Rider armor. You know, it's just I think it was just last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. So they didn't keep us waiting too long to get all that stuff matched up. But yeah, so I mean, those hammers are awesome looking and they look great with those armor sets. I have a feeling that when players get into War Within and you start meeting some Storm Riders, you're going to go, oh yeah, they're cool. I want to be like them. And then, you know, you'll be able to make your Earthen and all that. Like this stuff will look great on an Earthen. So just some stuff to think about as you're sort of budgeting your tender for the month. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, most months I'm just like, okay, I could take or leave literally everything on this vendor. And this month, I don't know, there's at least like 5 or 6 things I feel like I want to buy. So that's really good for me. This is a very strong trading post for me personally.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you're into it. It doesn't have a lot of things that speak to me other than the Murloc, but yeah, there's certainly some things that people can hop in and grab if that's something they want to do. All right, War Within beta development notes. The upgrade track system for Mythic, the Myth track, is now up to 6. It gets extended even farther. That means that we now go from 623 to 636, as opposed to 616 to 629. So they also bumped that up as well. So it's a higher max item level for folks to have a look at. And yeah, it's going to be some hefty gear. I don't know, that doesn't really mean anything to us numbers wise at the moment, but yeah, I mean, being able to do 6 steps just means that's that much more grind available for power if people are wanting to do it, which I think is cool. And hopefully this also means it's a way of passively nerfing high-end content because you are allowing players to get that much higher in item level through this track. That is the hope that I'm seeing with this. It's not going to be something shady like, well, it was 4 steps, but now we're going to reduce each step by 1 item level and add 2 more steps. And that's going to be the combined of what the 4 were for the, yeah, I'm hoping that's not the situation.
Right.
And that it's going to be, you know, an actual higher item level.
This is just a straight bonus on top of the structure that we've had. I want to slightly correct
did I say something
you there because the 636 cap is actually for crafted gear. So the Myth track goes a little bit higher than that. I believe it's 639 is the top end of the Myth track. Okay. The final boss of the raid will only drop Myth 4 out of 6. Okay. So if you go by like traditionally how they sort of tune difficulty around rewards, this means you have like 7 item levels or so of extra power you can get on top of what they consider the final boss of the raid to be worth. That's interesting. You know, we haven't seen that so far. Now, there are people that are upset about this because this means you need more crests, and that means you need to grind more. And I'm not sure that I am on board with this complaint. Now, granted, I really only play one character in endgame content. Okay. Playing World of Warcraft and making stuff about World of Warcraft is not my job. It is a thing that I really enjoy doing and I have fun with. And if there's one thing I love doing in World of Warcraft, it's grinding up power on my main character. So being able to take my gear and get it even better, to me, sounds good, right? And if I'm through my sort of progression goals, I'm AOTC, I got a couple mythic bosses maybe under the belt, you know, got Keystone Hero done, whatever the equivalent ends up being in War Within Season 1, but I can still log in, do some stuff, get some crests, get even more power, become more efficient, maybe open up some different kind of builds or something for different types of content. Right. To me, that sounds awesome. Okay. I understand that if you need to keep, you know, 4 or 8 or 12 or 16 tunes raid ready for, you know, super high end content, that the amount of crests you need to grind becomes an obstacle. but most of us don't play that way. Most of us have, a character or two or maybe three that we keep, up to date and really like to play and are good at. And so I think this is a huge boon to the average player because this is more power relative to the content difficulty tuning, probably, right? If we go by the theory that what the bosses drop is sort of a marker for like about where your power should be, well, you can now get more powerful than the stuff that the mythic end boss drops.
Right.
And they also bumped up the crafted gear. They didn't leave the crafted gear in the dust, which I like. It's more like it's been in the last couple seasons. In season 2 Dragonflight, your crafted gear could get all the way up the myth track. It would be just as good as anything you could get from a mythic raid boss or from your great vault.
Which was exciting.
That was awesome. I loved that as somebody who maxed out blacksmithing very early in the expansion and was just hooking myself and my plate-wearing guildies up. I don't really understand why WoW is always gun-shy with the power of crafted items. They just don't like it. And crafting is usually like a very important part of the genre traditionally, right? It's like this is what you do actually is you like gather materials to craft power. That is how it works.
It's your character's profession. Like it's that concept of, hey, it's a role play situation and part of my character's base identity is that they're a blacksmith. So they should be able to make a really nice weapon or a really nice piece of armor that is their like masterpiece that they hone and work on over the years. And, in their RP world is passed on generation to generation, eventually becoming a legendary, item, right? That kind of concept, right? Like that would be where the RP universe aspect of this would go. So it makes sense in that world that these crafters should be able to craft really impressive items that are equivalent to these other impressive items that, guess what, came from some other crafter somewhere. Like the loot being generated by bosses, like the loot being generated by bosses isn't like, oh my God, magically a mace was like formed out of its corpse. It's like, no, that's not how this works.
You're swinging the boss's rib cage at your enemies or something.
Someone has taken those materials and made a weapon before, and that weapon is impressive. And that, crafter could have been some ancient crafter who did this thing ages ago. And, now it's being wielded by this boss and you've defeated them and then that item's passed on. Like, so yes, I think professions are important and it should be emphasized, and it makes sense in the genre that these items are powerful items equivalent to or close to equivalent to what's dropping out of the top tier content in the game. It is also a great way for them to essentially passively nerf that content if it's not balanced around everyone having a crafted piece, which I don't think it ever should be, because I don't think that's a safe assumption to make that everyone is going to have a top tier crafted myth track piece. I don't think that's safe to do as a dev, so they shouldn't do that. So I think that's a great way to passively nerf it. Another great way to passively nerf it is a new quest that they're putting into the game called The Finer Things. This is going to start 1 month after Season 1 begins. And I have to say, I can't help but feel like I influenced this in some way. Because there were a lot of conversations about not wasting players' time and about, hey, after the first month or month and a half of raid content being out, they should start easing the raid content up so that players have an easier time getting through the content before and having time to farm while it's still a really good time and fun, as opposed to going prog into prog into prog. And so guess what this quest, The Finer Things, is that starts a month in. Players may collect Narubar finery within the Narubar Palace to smuggle out to their allies in exchange for additional power within the raid. These rewards are warband wide. The developer note on this is, this quest and its power rewards are intended to help players overcome difficult raid challenges over time, even as power from gear acquisition slows naturally. Players can expect a small amount of additional damage and healing done up to every 2 weeks if they collect the available Narubar finery, 8 per week, with a rising cap up to a maximum of 18% after completing the quest 8 times. Players who enter the raid late will fall behind will find they are able to rapidly catch up within several weeks, with even faster initial catch up, ensuring they are not too far behind their fellow raiders. Holy crap. This is a situation where every raider has something they can go and do every week, that gives them tangible power increases to their healing and damage done within raids every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, you can get in there and do this, task, which is going to get a little bit more difficult every time you do it. Not difficult, a little bit longer every time you do it. But at the end of it, you're going to be doing almost 20% more damage and healing after you've done this for 8 weeks, which means when you're 3 months into the raid, on top of the gear increases you've been getting, you're doing 18% more damage and healing at that stage of the raid. So farming will be easier for teams that are farming stuff by that point. Teams that were struggling will progressively find it easier and easier. Whatever this catch-up mechanic is means that if someone's like, all right, our tank left, Eddie, I know you've been melee DPS up to this point. We need you to switch over and become tank. Eddie, thank you so much for doing this. So Eddie goes out and has his other tank character that's Druid, brings in his Guardian Druid, and then does this catch-up mechanic and is able to get caught up with the rest of the group, or at least maybe they're 14% when everyone's 18%, fairly quickly so that they can actually progress and help their team progress in that content. I am pumped about this change. This is a great quality of life change. We haven't seen something like this since Ice Crown Citadel. It was like the last time we saw something like this.
Well, there was something similar in Old Deer, right? Old Deer did have that sort of, Ice Crown had, was it a zone-wide buff that you got?
That increased your
and
damage
it just kind of increased over time.
Yeah.
Old Deer you got this sort of progressive, I think it was tied to an Azerite armor trait though. Like you had to have a particular trait equipped, and then as you killed bosses in Old Deer, it would power up week to week, and so you'd have the scaling power.
It was not nearly as strong as it needed to be. There were classes that simmed out.
Not like
there were classes that simmed out better not wearing that piece sometimes. Like there was really weird stuff with that. It was not a good implementation.
It was it was sort of a victim. It was fraught by the Azerite armor system in general, which had its ups and downs, but especially early on, it was really tricky. And that was also when we only had, one outer ring of traits and all that. Not to get too in the weeds with a system from, 6 years ago or whatever, but that was the last time we really saw anything raid wide like this. And the example that you give of like, somebody needs to switch tunes, they wouldn't even need to do catch up because the buff is warband. So unless their tune that they're going to sub in is on a different like BattleNet account, then they're already caught up. Like, so it's going to make, there's a lot of really smart things about this design. I mean, which you kind of just pointed out with, how it's like not the way that they did it with the Azerite trait. It's just flat extra power, every other week. That's one thing. The other thing is that, yes, it's kicking in after a month, right? So after the first month, the most prestigious raiders will have achieved their prestige with a level playing field, right? You are also going to have the spikiest power gains for all players participating in the raid on any difficulty in that first month, because you're going from quest gear and low-level dungeon gear into raid gear and into keystone gear and whatever. So all of those power gains are super front-loaded. I mean, that's the way WoW always is, right? New stuff comes out, and you just shoot up that power curve early on, and then it levels off, and you kind of spend the rest of the season optimizing, right? So now, once that window is over of like the roller coaster going up the hill with the power gains, where it's like, okay, every week you could kind of see it. Even like Raider.io has a thing that tracks your item level against your weekly Mythic Plus progress at the end of the season, which is cool. But like, you see it. It's like, okay, early on, I'm going up the hill, and then it just flattens out, right? But now you can keep going up for the entire group. I mean, like, as your entire group participates in this and everybody is getting this buff, this is a huge amount of extra power.
Yeah.
Plus, it's very flexible. You can bring in alts, like when people start getting bored with the content, or can I bring my alt or whatever? Okay, well, your alt's low gear, but you also have 16% extra damage or whatever. Like, okay, you can bring your alt or whatever. So I think the timing is really nice because it's also going to take, say 2 months to get to the very top of the power curve from the Nerebar Finery. Okay.
Yeah. So that's 3 months into the raid. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, and then that's about the halfway point, right? You figure a raid is going to live about 6 months. So the first month is like, we are flying up that power curve. We're getting upgrades left, right, and center. And the people that are pushing the hardest for rankings or whatever they're doing, they're probably done inside about that month. Okay. And then beyond that, now the progressive power buff starts coming in, and we get a little bit more at a time as we continue to play the raid, and then it caps out, and then we're about halfway through the season at that point, and then we have time to farm efficiently or work on bosses that maybe just wouldn't have been realistic without that throughput buff. So this is really cool. I think they're doing some smart stuff here. They've been, ever since that Icecrown Citadel zone-wide buff, they've been, I don't know what to say, cagey. They've been really careful with stuff like this because I don't think they ultimately liked that implementation. And now there are still some people who worked on the game back then that are still around. And, I don't think that because that implementation maybe could have been better or more flexible or something that means there's no reason to ever do something like this again. So I think this is definitely worth a shot. And the other thing is being in the first tier of the expansion is better because tuning is going to be all over the place, right? We don't really get it dialed in until that middle patch, I feel like. So it's going to smooth stuff out a lot. And honestly, it's going to encourage people to keep playing and to keep coming back, and which helps groups and people who run groups immensely. And also, from a raid leader perspective, like I said, okay, somebody wants to bring an alt and we're 3 months in and whatever, okay, it's going to be less punishing to do that because they're going to have this baseline power spike to begin with. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a really cool idea. It's definitely worth doing, and the time is right, at the outset of an expansion first raid tier.
Yeah, and to me, the biggest case here is the fact that first month is the month where you're going to have the Race to World first happen. You're going to have the really hardcore teams that push to finish in that first 2 weeks, get everything all wrapped up. Content's consistent. You're not worried about a passive nerf coming in. The teams that want to compete for that top 100 position, they are probably 2/3 of the way through it by that tail end. And a 4% increase, if that's what you get in your first week, or even a 3% increase, is nothing. It's like, it is a nice help for a team, but it's not going to be like, oh my goodness, this completely nerfs all the content in such a massively dramatic way. Yes, you're able to meet some pushes better, but that could also just be combination of getting better gear, having vault rewards come in again, whatever it is, when you're 5 weeks into an expansion, into a raid tier. The biggest thing is everyone gets that bonus. So it's an equal playing field when it comes to a race like this. So the teams that I would compete with would do, when I was Mythic raiding, would do 6 to 8 weeks, would sort of be like the window that you'd be completing this content in. And when it came down to it, I would have loved to have had this buff taking place and be able to go, yeah, you know what, every week I put that little bit of effort in, and it means I get 4% more or 2% more, or whatever it is, damage and healing done, which just makes everything a little bit easier to do. So by the time we hit the 3-month point, when we're farming this content consistently, it's now at that point where you're like, oh, this is easy. We can log in 1 night a week. We're easily clearing the raid. We're doing 20% more damage than we normally do. Everyone's kind of got the loot pieces except for the few little things they're looking for. Like you said, people are gearing their alts, and we're having a lot more alts come in. We're doing sale runs for, guess what? One of the 3 mounts, because that's the other thing we're getting in Mythic runs, where Mythic mount is now increased to 3 mounts per kill as opposed to 2. So that's happening too. So you're doing more sales, more gold gain, which is great in game, so that you're able to then purchase things like the Brutosaur mount when that comes out, and other large mount things that are taking place for folks. It's just a good experience for that type of raider as well. So I wanted to be sure I covered. I would love to hear a top end Mythic raiders, naysaying opinion about this change, because I'd be like, I'm really curious what it is that you have to say that's negative about this taking place, right?
Yeah.
If you consider their other options that they could have done was like, oh, we'll just nerf the content. We'll just reduce all boss health and trash health by 3% inside the entire dungeon every 2 weeks going forward. They could have done that. That could have been the decision they made. And, okay. Would that be something that everyone naysayed about too? I don't know. If you have a naysay about this,
dicey. Yeah.
I like the idea that your characters get more powerful. I think that feels good across the board.
Yeah, and I think for a specific reason that I like this implementation better than, say, the Icecrown Citadel one, is that this is something you earn, right? It may be somewhat perfunctory, right? Especially if you're in a regular rating group, like you're going to go in and you're going to do this quest every week. But like it still is, it's a reward for having invested the time and effort on your character and with your team. It's not like, oh, it's Tuesday, oh, move the thing 5%, right? Which was the way Ice Crown Citadel worked. I mean, we're talking about this kind of off the cuff, and people may not remember rating Ice Crown Citadel. Like eventually they implemented a zone-wide buff that just gave players, I forget exactly what it was. Was it just like all your stats were increased by 5% a week or something like that? And it got all the way up to 30% by the end of that. And you could talk to an NPC and shut it off, but you know, there was no, you did not participate in that process. It wasn't attached to your character in any way. It's just, oh, it's the day for it to go up, it goes up.
Yeah.
This implementation is like, this is part of my character's journey. I am getting better at fighting these things. I have invested time into this process, and now I benefit from it because I acquire. I mean, that is the essence of power RPG, acquisition in World of Warcraft, right? So, I think it sounds really cool. I think it's like I said, it's worth trying. You know, we haven't seen it in a long time. The last one we saw was 2018. And this one seems a lot better than that. So I think that combined with the extra power you can get out of the myth track system, with crafting being adjusted so you get closer to that, you know, theoretical complete cap. Crafting's not left in the dust. So if you have crafters on your team that can help you out, or you are one, you know, you can fill in those gaps if you have bad luck with slots. Like all of that stuff means that you're going to be able to either take on progressively harder challenges or just do what you're accustomed to. If you're farming, whatever kind of mode you're in, just do it more efficiently. It sounds really good.
But wait, there's more. That's right. The last two bosses of every difficulty will drop crests that are of the next difficulty level, in addition to the ones that normally drop. So the example they use is that Queen Ansarek and the Silken Court will now drop additional upgrade crests from the next higher difficulty, in addition to their existing crests. So they'll drop 15 runed Harbinger crests, as well as 15 gilded Harbinger crests, which means, hey, your group can then get prepped to move into the next difficulty. The game is literally telling you, hey, now that you've done this, why don't you try this next thing? We're going to start gearing you up towards that and helping you get there. That's exactly what we want from this situation is, hey, you know what? Maybe you're getting something from Mythic Plus that's on the gilded track, and you're able to get, or the rune track, and you're able to get the crest that you need for the next difficulty by doing content from the difficulty before it and finishing the final top end content for that. Like I dig it. I think that's great. I think this is a great change.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's one really important thing here too, is that the top end of the hero track traditionally requires the top end crests. So if you were a player who you just do heroic raid, like your basic experience with WoW endgame is, I'm on a heroic team, I log in with my friends, we play and we do heroic raid, and then, you know, I'll do quests or whatever else. I'll play alts and I just kind of hang out. Well, then your gear would get kind of stuck, right? Because you weren't getting aspect crests if all you were doing was heroic raid. So you were getting gear out of the raid that you actually couldn't max out without doing some other content, whether higher difficulty raids or very high difficulty Mythic Plus. Like if you're not an invested Mythic Plus player, those aspect crests, as we call them right now, those, you know, top end crests, they don't come easy unless you're invested in that system. And so, you know, a few people that on my team, like they really don't do anything with endgame except heroic raid and the occasional like mythic boss that we have under our belt. That's not a lot of, you know, high end crests to max out your gear, even heroic track gear. So this is a really smart change. It helps players who are in that boat, you know, get the most out of the rewards they're already earning. And then for other players, like, yes, like you said, it's a good stepping stone into higher difficulty. Maybe it's also a good way to just like get some extra progress towards your weekly cap. Like I'll probably be in the mode pretty early on in season 1, unless tuning is really busted, where we're doing heroic raid clears, dabbling in mythic, and I'm doing, you know, 9s, 10s, trying to get Keystone Hero, trying to get teleports, trying to cap my aspect crests. well, they're not called aspect crests. I'm not going to be able to get my head around what the stuff is called until it's live, and then I'll forget what the Dragonflight stuff was called. But bear with me. Hopefully my meaning is clear. Is like I'll get the top end. I'll get some extra top end crests from each of these last two bosses, which that's like, a couple. If they both drop 15, then that's like several keystone dungeons I don't have to do to make progress towards that crest cap, if that's specifically the only reason I'm doing the dungeon, right? So that frees up my time immensely. Like, I really don't like doing keystone dungeons specifically to earn crests, right? If they're a nice feature of the whole system of like, I'm going to learn the dungeons, I'm going to power up, I'm going to try to get this drop, I'm going to try to get this rating, I'm going to try to time a +10. Sweet, look at all these crests I've acquired in the process. But when we get halfway through the season, and it's like, damn, I really need I need to make one more crafted piece, and then I need X amount of crests to max out these 3 slots. What's the easiest, fastest keystone I can do? All right, let me just check Group Finder and queue up for 3 of those in a row. You know what I mean? Like, that's not compared to this. Like, this is what's coming in is so much better than that, because I mean, it's not only that they're dropping the higher level ones, you're double dipping. You're getting the heroic ones and the mythic ones, right? So on heroic difficulty, for example, or normal into heroic. It's incredible. And I mean, how many times since 2016, really, maybe 2017 when it became clear, have we lamented on the show, or I lamented, like, Keystone Dungeons are awesome, but they're really stepping on the rewards from Heroic Raid. It's really making Heroic Raid not feel as valuable or as important as it used to feel. And I feel like, one of the big steps they took towards that in this expansion was adding the unique items, right? The cantrips, as they call them, the stuff that has like a proc or some unique effect on it in combat that only comes from raids. And I think this is another huge step in that direction. This is a great source of crests and a way to kind of break out of that power tier that you maybe are stuck in. So incredible changes, I think, to the overall itemization here at Endgame for myth track items, hero and myth track items with the crest, the crafted gear. This is great stuff. I'm happy to see this come in, and I think it's going to benefit pretty much everybody who participates in any kind of rating.
Yeah, I feel like this is just only a benefit. There's no negative here at all when it comes to handing these sorts of crests out. Again, I don't see anyone being able to complain about this change. I think overall this was like one of the most exciting positive blog posts about the rating systems that we've seen in a while. So that's great to see. So I'm pumped for that. Okay, Mythic Plus affixes changes and updates for the July 31st week, because we keep having these every week. Guess what? There's a new Xal'atath bargain. This one's Devour. Now, while in combat, Xal'atath tears open rifts that devour the essence of all players. This rift unleashes its energy after 15 seconds, healing all enemies in combat. If the rift collapses, or if it is dispelled, or players receive enough healing, it grants all players. Sorry, I got to start this little part out. The rift collapses if it is dispelled. Period. Or players receive enough healing, granting all players critical strike chance and a maximum health increase, I assume. That's really poorly worded. I'm assuming you dispel this and then you get a big crit buff and your maximum health is increased. I don't understand the players receive enough healing, because I'm assuming this must be either that it puts an absorb on players and you have to heal through the absorb and that breaks it, or they just phrased this really wrong. It's one or the other.
It's not a great. Your assumption is correct. The wording in this post is not great.
Yeah.
But yes, that is what happens. Like the Devour it's like a debuff that goes out on the entire party, and it is a percentage of your max health. It's a healing absorb, and it can either be healed off or dispelled. And when that happens, yes, you get a crit and max health bonus. And when it does not happen, I believe it heals the mobs that you're in combat with. So that's really bad. But it is in that kind of vein. It's I think because of the nature of the dispellableness of the debuff, that people immediately sort of made the connection to Afflicted. And it's like, oh, we're getting rid of Afflicted, and now here's this thing, which is the same thing. I think there's some thread there for sure, but I don't think it's. I really don't think it's that comparable for a couple reasons. First of all, it doesn't add anything new into the battlefield. There aren't separate mobs as a result of this, right? You're fighting what you're fighting. The debuffs go on the players. I think one of the annoyances about Afflicted, as we've seen it in this expansion, is, let's say you're in Brackenhide Hollow, right? And there's a lot of poison debuffs that go out in that dungeon. And it's an Afflicted week. And so what do? Do you dispel the Afflicted mob that's going to debuff your whole party if it goes off, or you dispel the player that's dying to the poison? That's not a good feeling choice to make. In this case, you have a lot of options to dispel off of the players. And so if a player already has something bad on them, your dispel might just be, a double whammy. You might be clearing a couple things off of one target. You also have the option of healing, and like a lot of classes have some self-healing. Self-healing has been nerfed a bit, and Leech has been nerfed a bit and all, but it still exists. And so this is an opportunity for players to use those abilities. When Devour goes out, like, okay, let me hit my impending victory, and then that's like 30% of my max health right there. So that's a huge chunk of the shield. And then talenting into second wind now. So if I get my defensives up and I don't take any damage for a second, then that's like a 6% max health tick. And, it's like a 15-second window, at least as proposed here. We'll see what it gets tuned to, if it stays at 15 or it goes longer or whatever. I mean, even a lowly like prot warrior could potentially chunk off a 50% shield or whatever in a few globals. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for counterplay and different ways to approach it. Players could dispel themselves. You could have some kind of mass dispel thing. Self-healing could be very strong against it. I don't know. It seems decently flexible to me. The crit bonus is also nice. It's like Afflicted doesn't give you a crit bonus if you do it right. It's just you didn't get the huge debuff from letting Afflicted go off, right? You don't get 30% crit or whatever the bonus ends up being. So overall, I think it's okay. Like I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to counterplay here, and a lot of opportunities for different abilities to shine. You may want to prioritize a more self-healing build or something on a Devour week, whereas on an Afflicted week, there's nothing I can do. There's no talent that I can take as a warrior that means that I'm going to be able to help my group with it, right?
Yeah.
But with Devour, like, I have options. I can get more self-healing from somewhere. I could get more Leech. I could hold off on hitting
I wonder if like a last
heal.
stand would count as a heal. Like if you hit last stand, would that instantly pop your bubble kind of idea? Like that would be interesting,
right?
To
or
know,
like
those sorts of things.
Yeah, or interactions with Ignore Pain, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like
victory
that.
rush,
and
that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and like talents that convert Rage Throughput into some self-healing. Like I guess that's what I'm getting at, is there's just a lot of options here. So
yeah,
I think it's decent. To me, like okay, there is a through line here. I'm not going to be ignorant. There is a through line from Afflicted to this, but I feel like we were talking last week about the new ethics that they were testing being like, what if Volcanic was better, right? Like, what if Volcanic rewarded you for doing it right? This seems like that to me. It's kind of based on a familiar idea, but is a better implementation. It's less noisy. I mean, when you have two Afflicted mobs somewhere in the battlefield and you got to find them and dispel them or whatever, like that's just been such a disruptive and bad feeling experience compared to this.
The only thing that this overlaps that I'm a little concerned about is, what if there's a dungeon where there's a very important debuff to dispel, and your dispel's on cooldown all the time because you're constantly trying to deal with Devour? That is just a really crappy feeling as a healer, because then you end up in a situation where Devour comes up and you're blowing through a ton of mana to try and get through this Absorb, because you know that debuff is coming and you have to have a dispel ready for it, and you don't want to go on a 6+ second cooldown to try and get people out of this Devour faster. And the fact that it's after 15 seconds that this happens, that's a limited time frame. I'm also curious about how you're supposed to be able to dispel everyone who gets this, unless it's only on a few people in that 15-second window. So
right, I mean, at least in what I've seen from testing, like, it does go out on the entire party. I don't think dispelling everyone is going to be realistic.
So ideally, you are healing
you know?
through this. So they really need to, in my opinion, they just really need to hit the mark on how much healing that is. If that's like, hey, a WoW growth and maybe a spot heal here and there, sure. Like I can kind of get that idea from like a Resto Druid perspective, but this is a struggle for some classes to fit the globals to be able to pull this off. And if the objective is, hey, well, other people be helping you with it, like a tank covering their own healing, whatever it is, Blood DK loves this thing because they just they'll heal through it passively on their own no matter what. But if that objectively is the idea, then I feel like there's an onus here on the healer that stands out, that if DPS don't know any better, can cause a huge issue for the group, because even one person not getting this dispelled off of them in time or healed through in time creates the negative effect for everybody, which is a big problem. So
I mean, DPS really have to be tuned into it, right? And if you do have a way to dispel yourself, if you are a class that has an on-demand, dispel or whatever in DPS spec, then you should know to be using it against this, right? Because and again, like we have that right now with Afflicted, right? Like, Ret Pally, you help out with Afflicted dispels, but then they have to potentially reposition, move somewhere uncomfortable, find the thing in the field, target it, versus having just like a self-cast dispel macro. Okay, it comes up, pop it, and just keep doing what you're doing. I think it's okay. I think it's going to be okay. What you're saying is absolutely true. But there's always that sort of learning curve and level of responsibility in high-end content, regardless. I feel like, and again, and also like you said, it depends on I mean, we've said that a lot, but it depends on tuning for all this stuff. They're changing so much about the way endgame's going to work in this content, and if the tuning's off and it doesn't get better quickly enough, then that is going to be a huge problem. Nobody wants to play the game if it feels bad for an extended period of time. So they do have to make sure that's dialed in. I think the overall design here is okay, right? I feel like, thinking about my main and my play style, I feel like I can actually contribute to the group succeeding against this affix in a way that a lot of times these things they put in, I am sort of a detriment. I'm like actively making it harder for us to do it because another class could just help and I can't.
Yeah. Okay, anyways, moving on from that part, the other part of this Mythic Plus Affix update that we got was a whole bunch of tuning to actual like raid content, not raid, dungeon content, right? Mythic Plus content. And a lot of these tunings were, physical damage reduced, but then we started seeing things like, hey, this ability can now be blocked and some other damage reduced. And at the top of the post, it says, thank you all for your feedback on our new Mythic Plus system. As we continue to review community responses for future adjustments, we've made some updates in this week's beta. This week also includes a pass on tank damage intake from many enemies in the dungeons. In other words, hey, you remember that post we put out last week about making tanks tanks? And that's what their role should be, and that's how this should work, and rewarding tanks for using their abilities well? This is what that is. They are going back in and going, yep, here you go. Your tank role is more important. Guess what? If you put up shield block at the right time, you can avoid a really high damage ability now because we've now made that ability blockable. Hey, guess what? This ability now does reduced physical damage, and this one now does reduced physical and shadow damage. So now your tanks are essentially removing some of that spike from the damage that they're going to be taking. They're making it so that the vulnerability from physical damage is reduced by 10% inside some bosses as well, so that tanks are essentially tankier in their role for what they're supposed to be doing with the changes that we saw come through last week and talked about. So I'm glad to see this happening. And Jason, I'm sure you got stuff to weigh in on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is, we were talking, I think it was 2 episodes ago, we talked a lot about, sort of the texture of combat and maintaining those sort of defined roles in WoW combat, and how, important we both think that is versus having more homogenized roles where everybody's just sort of contributing as much damage as they can. And again, to the tuning piece that I was just talking about, and this has been the overall theme this summer, is us sort of, holding our breath slightly about what the tuning is going to feel like. But you look at these changes, and I have not tested these dungeons. I didn't test them pre or post these changes. But when you look at what they're doing, where, okay, Here's a debuff that puts a physical damage vulnerability on your tank. Well, that was it was stacking up, 20% per stack, and we're going to stack it up 10% per stack. Or it was stacking up, 100%. It would make you take double damage, and now it's going to make you take 50% increased damage. That provides these windows for counterplay, right? Where you can sort of mitigate this damage, and you can have these windows of safety that are a bit longer. Making abilities blockable is huge for Warrior, right? Like that's Warrior's bread and butter, is blocking physical attacks. The damage reduction, especially as you gear up and as you sort of get your stats where they need to be, get your throughput in place, and you know what to expect, like you start mastering the content, like your damage reduction from block is just absurd. It's such a powerful tool. Paladin obviously can also utilize this, not to the degree that Warrior does, but they have a shield and they do block stuff with it. So you have those timing windows where okay, I'm going to hit with this. I can get my block up and take reduced damage. That's awesome. And that sort of helps, I think, with parity with tanks that have more self-healing and more on-demand, kind of, bounce back healing, like DK, for example, but block's not an option for them. But, when you have these windows of like, okay, the tank is going to be threatened, but it's not that sort of rubber band situation, right? It's like you better have your biggest button, or your healer better have their biggest button, or you're dead on the spot. It's more of this sort of ebb and flow of like, okay, you're taking this damage, and now you take a debuff, and now you're taking slightly more damage. Now you need, some kind of minor solution to this, and now, okay, it's going to keep ramping up. So like, what's the optimal time to use your big button? And then hopefully it ramps down, and you kind of create that sort of continuity to the fight, right? Where you have these moments that you need to dial it in and have stuff lined up for, and then, you can feel like you made good decisions. I think these are good changes. I mean, it's hard to look at this stuff as a Prot Warrior main for life and not be kind of licking my chops here. This is what we do. We block stuff. That's why we have the shield. That's our whole deal, is blocking stuff. And I'm reading these notes. It's like, okay, this thing on this boss can now be blocked. This thing on this boss can now be blocked. This thing on this boss can now be blocked. This is incredible. It's going to make Warriors so sturdy in these situations. And, reducing the vulnerability, the debuffs, the things that make you take increased damage for a time, by such a big factor. I mean, they're cutting them in half in a couple of these situations. It gives the combat so much more room to breathe. And so I think it's a good place to start when it comes to trying to kind of reset the bar a little bit when it comes to tuning and the overall pace of combat.
Yeah, exactly. All right. With that, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. And today I'm giving a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Pinky, Shorel, and Rager. Thank you so much for all that you give, as well as our newest patron, Charles W. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show over on patreon.com/thestartingzone, where folks can find our Patreon if they're wanting to hop in and support the show, keep our archives online, keep the show going, keep the records happening every week. Even when Jason's on vacation, it still happens. We find a time and make it happen. But yes, all of our patrons, thank you so much for all that you give or have given in the past and present patrons. We appreciate you. Thank you again for supporting the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, so much. And welcome in, Charles. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it. And it really does help keep us going, keep the show on track, keep everything online, keep the feed up and all that stuff. So you guys can get new episodes and dive into, we have so many, dive into those 600 plus episodes in the archive and all that. The support makes it all possible. So thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. If you folks have enjoyed this episode, another great way to support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review. Those reviews are read here live on the show, and we love reading them because we like hearing from all of you. They help boost us up the charts, help more people find the show. We were ranking way up there this past week as well, which felt really good. This one comes in from Fraser in Canada, entitled Love the Show. Says, I'm a newer listener, but been playing WoW since 2006. Love getting the weekly updates, especially about the Mythic Plus affixes. I don't raid anymore, but I push keys with the limited time I have. I'm 2956 rating right now, trying to hit 3K this season for the first time before War Within. Keep up the awesome work. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts moving into the World Soul Saga. Yes, That I guess Sega Saga. I said Saga is probably correct. This was a Sega. That whole thing, you know. It's not one of
Well,
those.
I mean, this review is from a fellow Canadian,
It's
so
true.
I think you're entitled to pronouncing the vowel sound however you
Thank you.
people need
Thank
to
you.
do that up
I
there.
appreciate the
that's-
respect. It's nice.
Yeah,
that's good.
that's between the two of you. I'm not going to weigh in.
Well, thank you, Fraser, for supporting the show, leaving us that review, and good luck getting that last 44 points that you need to roll over into 3K. I'm sure you can do it. You got a couple weeks left. You can figure that out. This is a decent week, as Jason said. You might be able to get some more fortified squeezed in there. We'll find out. And, you know, the changes to talents have helped people get a little more buff. You're a little stronger. Maybe you'll get up there. We'll see. But yeah, thank you so much for the review. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for writing in. Great to hear from you, and great we could help you out. It's always great to hear. And I think the problem with trying to push any more rating is like, hey, guys, get out of the Radiant Echo. Stop leveling alts.
Yeah.
Let's go do some keys, you know?
Could be.
But man, when you're at that threshold, I mean, you know, I think it's a bit of an easier sell. Like, listen, I just need a couple more dungeons and we'll get that 3K.
Yeah.
You know, you get some people on board with you. But yeah, we're getting down to the wire. So that's I mean, this review is from a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe we've already hit the 3K milestone. I hope so. But yeah, I mean, the good thing is, you know, the tuning is very favorable. So I think it's doable for sure. So good luck out there.
Yeah. All right, with that's going to wrap up episode 643 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show or leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone, or you can join our Discord server, thestartingzone.com/discord. Hop on in there and post away your questions or just get to know the community. Lots of people active in there on a daily basis. And if you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/the starting zone. Check out all the sweet designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and that kind of fun stuff. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me is always over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. You can also find me on Blue Sky. It's just Jay Lucas over there. And you can find the video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Video has been dormant, but it is about to wake back up. Another week or so once I get back from vacay, and we'll start getting it ready for expansion. So come say hi in any of those places.
Very nice. Yeah, my vacation kicks off on the 22nd, so maybe I'll do a little stream over the week that I have off then, and we'll find out. But also, if you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. Blue Skies at SpencerHD. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD and on youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.